questions, Bob?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have. Where you're excavating and increasing the size of the water portion, that's, you said 3 feet in depth, is that correct? I think I heard you say that.
No, it would be going back about, I don't have the exact number, somewhere between 20 and 30 feet. It would move back to the dotted line on map 3. That's the actual 1967 shoreline.
Oh, I'm referring to the depth of the water.
The current depth of the water, you have to go out, what did you say, about 30 feet before you hit 3 foot of depth?
Yeah, the dock drawn on out in front of lots 14 and 15 is a 30-foot dock, and then it's about 6 feet, so about 36 feet right now to hit navigational water.
Okay, and the other question I think is relevant, but it needs to be asked, and that's the distance between the proposed normal water line and the residence that's on the neighboring lot.
Yep.
What would that make the distance be?
I'll start with, so lot 13 is currently vacant, so that would be, if anyone would build, they would have to, follow the approved setbacks. Lot 14 and 15 measures from the
Okay.
from the 67 plat map line to the house as it exists now measures about 78 feet, so would be in compliance according to my understanding. There is no house on lot 16, and then we are about 180 feet on lot 21 with our house from the water, or 150, something like that. But we're not touching any frontage as of right now on lot 21. It's just lot 20 through 13 essentially, just fixing the cove.
Now when you do all this dredging and you put in the new riprap and everything, and you're gonna tear up that shoreline pretty bad, what are the plans on replanting and resodding trees? Maybe tell us your plans about what you plan to do. There's vegetative riprap, that's one approach to take also.
Yeah, so currently 14 and 15 have a rock rip wall, and they kind of maintain about, it looks like a 2 or 3 foot state of vegetation behind that. I don't know if that's on purpose or they just don't mow it, I'm not sure. Like I said, on lot 16, they essentially don't have anything to maintain, but they do have an easement on the front of lot 20, but not from lot 16, it's from lot 17. And that is, listed per the easement as a beach area currently. And then we just have a normal rip wall frontage and that we keep maintained pretty normally on ours. So I think the plan, there's a tree halfway up lot 16 we probably have to cut down to get access for the off-road dump truck to remove the fill. But the actual main big trees around the thing kind of follow the 1967 plat map, which leads to more evidence that that's the way it was supposed to be, because they're all like 30 plus 40-year-old trees. So there is no trees or anything other than just grass right now that has to be removed. And for the most part, 90% of everything is staying as far as vegetation, and would continue to be vegetation up to the, everything would stay exactly as it is now, just pushed back.
And you have a planned route, the excavated material is going to go out through somebody's lot.
Yep, right now it looks like the easiest way is going to be through lot 16. And then I haven't talked to Carrie or Randy on lot 13, but if something wouldn't work on lot 16, that would probably be our backup plan. But I don't see why lot 16 is not going to work. But yeah, lot 20 and 21 are kind of blocked by house and garage. And lot 14 is blocked by a house, but I think there's a clear path on lot 16 for the machinery. Yes.
And what you can do, Bob, as a board, is put a condition on that they would have to have like a stormwater management plan in place, approved and in place by Land and Water, before they could even disturb the ground at all. And that would show where the path is, and Land and Water would make sure that that they're not causing an erosion issue by creating like a roadway down there. So you can certainly put that the board could put that as a condition of approval.
Bob, if you refer to this letter, states in here, if granted, bay restoration will follow strict guidelines and regulations of the DNR.
Yes,
Is that included in that regulation? I didn't know that.
It's right here.
And they would have to follow the DNR regulations one way or the other. I don't think it would hurt to have that additional condition that I just said about the stormwater management plan. Yep. The board puts that occasionally, and it's good to have Land and Water take a look at it. They're the, that division is the experts in that type of stuff, so.
Do we have any more questions, Bob? Ben Talski?
We can open it up to the public. Is there any members of the public wishing to speak in favor of the application?
This is Brian Fisher.
Yes.
I'm a nearby adjacent landowner. That's part of the reason I got the letter from. I'm not opposed to the idea because I understand I'm an onshore owner as well, just around the corner. Understand the erosion problems of the original man-made lake. Very familiar with that cove area and how shallow it is. So I'm not opposed to it at all. Just thinking if, you know, that Cove Bay is pretty, like you said, non-navigable just about for half of it almost. Are there plans to dredge out of that bay itself as you get the dry land area, or are you going to leave that shallow? Because it's mostly organic material that's in the bottom of that bay that just blows in leaves and weeds, lake weeds that just blow in and are going to continually fill that. Is that part of your application with the DNR or whatever to partially dredge that down to an original level?
so yeah, that'll be step 2 of the process. A little correction of your thought, that actually is a almost 100% sand base in there. All the owners in those lots, we all do a pretty good job of removing the leaves and the weeds that blow in there. And it's, I mean, I'm not gonna, it's 90% sand. There's very, very little muck in there actually, but yes, that would be an issue. We otherwise we'd be out 3 feet, almost 65 feet to get to the line of navigation. So I know that's a separate technically permit from the DNR, but that is in the state statutes.
Okay.
To maintain access for your boat, you are allowed to maintain that thing, but you do have to get a permit for it. So yeah, we did not intend on leaving it 3 feet that deep. We will, follow the DNR's guidelines, and we would like to have that if that can be approved as part of this permit, that would be great. But if that's another permit we have to get, that's the route we will follow.
No, that's good information. Part of the reason I'm asking is because none of that map stuff or any of that other information was posted online for me to see that I could find. I could only find the original letter. That was all I saw online. There were no maps or any of the attachments that you guys are talking about.
Usually it's attached to the calendar, right?
Did not see it, could not find it. So
Well, if you do find it, map 3 is the best one for you to review because it does show the original plat.
does not work when you click on their names. For me, never worked. See, that's on there.
Yep. That's how we do all of our meetings.
I mean, I can kind of just hold it up to the thing if you kind of want to.
No, that's
I don't
okay.
know if that'll work.
I understand that part I saw.
Or we can email it over.
This material.
Just keep them in order.
Okay,
That's the official packet.
okay. Yeah, there's some other stuff in here, obviously, that's not on that attachment.
Dave Trudeau, I'm here representing Lake Sherwood property owners as the conservation chairman. I just had a couple questions. What is the treatment going to be on the shoreline? I mean, I'm hearing some riprap, there might be some area that's beach, there might be some that's vegetated. And also, what is the plan for any native vegetative buffer? And if so, to what depth from the shore will is that in the plans for like a full 35-foot buffer?
So it's our understanding that whatever exists, and that's a gray area, and this, you guys will have to answer this for us, but whatever exists now is grandfathered in from the new DNR standards. We essentially, the plan is whatever everyone has as a current frontage will stay the same, just move back. So if a lot are currently has rip wall, they will most likely have rip wall. The one in question, yes, is going to be lot 16 because it's reduced to nothing, but there is proof that over the years that was always sand, or just a, you know, an easy egress in and out. On lot 20, that is an easement, like I said, from 1968, 67. That's very specifically states for, you know, for use as a beach. So that would stay sand. And then lot 21 as of right now is not really getting touched at all. So essentially the same frontages, the same shorelines, and just move back.
Again, any plans for native vegetative buffer, filter strips, something along that line to help stabilize the shoreline and, you know, stop any mowing practices except for as allowed for a viewing corridor?
So the suites, which are lots 14 and 15, I don't think are present here. I don't know what their plans are. I was very clear that, you know, or not very clear, but I'm assuming they know that whatever they have now is what they will have to have still. We're not opposed. Like I said, lot 20 is an easement and it states for beach use. So that's and it currently is sand, or, you know, it's been washed out over the years, but it was a very sandy beach. We're not opposed to adding a rip wall back 15, 20 feet or something, you know, to, as some other, you know, access areas on the lake are done, which gives you that vegetative zone behind that and some, you know, kind
That
of,
would not be allowed.
okay. And I didn't know if that was a way to do that or if that was required or not. So either way, there's a lot of facts we don't know here, but we'll follow whatever we're told to follow is I guess the gist of it.
The short answer, Dave, is that there's no plan in place to do a buffer restoration, nor would there be a requirement to do it.
So that couldn't be a condition.
It could be a condition if the board chose to go that route.
It's something we would definitely encourage.
Would that be covered under stormwater management?
No, a buffer restoration, the stormwater management plan that I mentioned before is making sure that during the project and immediately after, everything doesn't end up in the lake. This is restoring the buffer. I mean, what Dave's getting at is, you know, the trees, shrubs, wildflowers, the ground cover, or the native vegetation on the shoreline long term.
This falls under our land and water management. If we institute part of this into the motion or into the whatever we pass,
Right.
it will be covered through land and water.
Only if you,
Yes, we specify.
right. And yeah, if you did say, what is the total frontage that we're dealing with here currently?
Give me a second here. So it's about 35, well, 40, let's just say 130-ish feet currently, 140-ish feet currently. Between
What will the
five
shoreline
lots.
be what will the shoreline be when it's done?
I think it jumps about 30%, 40%, about 230 or something, because it'll be essentially 66 feet for lot 13, 35 for 14, like 30 for 13, 25-ish for 16, 49 for 20, and like 52 for 21. So a little over 200, I think, is my rough math on.
So it adds up to about 260 foot of frontage. If the board were to say, put a condition on that, total over the whole thing, 50 feet of it had to be restored to restore their buffer strip. if that was a condition, Land and Water would have to approve the plan of
Can you-
how they would do that.
Can I get a
Yeah,
better
what-
explanation on restore the buffer? Like, because we're
Sure,
not
so-
touching 21 and like lot 13 is still a natural shoreline, you know, it's never been, you know, sold or built or anything or inhabited at all. So that's still a natural, just trees to the edge. And even where we're, maybe just to clarify, where we're digging, we don't, past that dotted line, we don't plan on touching any trees, grass, or shrubs, especially if we're able to, you know, if this is passed and we're able to do that dry. You know, there's no, the excavator will be able to sit on the one side, dig that out, everyone will be able to do the rip wall dry or sand work or retaining cloth under dry conditions. And we don't actually have to even touch any native vegetation past that dotted line during the work is kind of how I'm picturing it. So
So a compliant buffer strip is the width of the lot, 35 feet deep from the water inland. There is provisions for an access corridor and a viewing corridor for about a third of the lot width. In that buffer strip, you can't remove any vegetation, trees, shrubs, wildflowers, and you're supposed to have all three levels of cover and vegetation. What I think the board is getting at is you're asking to do something the ordinance doesn't specifically allow for, and in return or for mitigation of being able to do that, your new shoreline is now going to have trees, flowers, shrubs as kind of to offset, because that's what it's supposed to have anyway. Beaches
Yeah.
are no longer allowed.
So actually ironically right now, like from the dotted line to the current shore on lot 14 and 15 is essentially vacant. They have a couple feet of stuff that's not mowed before the rip wall, but where we're digging it back actually adds 3 or 4 trees to the shoreline essentially. And as far as I'm aware, there's no plan to remove any of that. So the shore will actually be picking up trees and shrubs as it moves back more into the native existing.
Which is great. If they put a distance that X amount of feet have to be restored and you already have 50 feet of that's compliant, great.
In my opinion, we would, yes, there actually would be, it probably would be more in compliance with the imaginary line that is the 67 plat map based on the vegetation that's in existence closer to that line than currently. I think we would be in compliance with that. Lot 13 is 100% in compliance. It is a natural, it's in its, you know, natural state. And we're not touching lot 21. So it's, yeah, I mean,
What do we do with the beach?
yeah, like I said, we have that easement on there, on lot 20. And we obviously, I guess I don't know if I'd call it a beach, maybe if we can just leave that a natural shore with a, you know, retaining cloth underneath or whatever we have to do, but that is, as of right now, an easement for, you know, it's for use for lots 20 and 20 as the owners, and then also for easement for 17, 18, and 19, and it's goes back to 1967, and it's for ingress and egress for use as a beach. So I know that doesn't completely comply with the current standards, so it's a gray area, but we were hoping that that would just stay what it was, just to not have to have the argument about the easement uses and access. It's essentially a beach club, kind of like Lancer or some of the other beach clubs on Sherwood. It's just,
Without being-
for whatever reason, it was implemented as an easement instead of a beach club.
Trustee, I have one question, please.
Yeah.
When they excavate, where is this soil going? And is it toxic?
Well,
Did you hear the question?
yes, we're assuming it's not toxic, because if it is, we want it gone anyways. But it'll be, as of right now, the quote we have for removal of this is from one of the excavator operators that does the work at Sand Valley. And they actually, he will take you know, using an off-road dump truck, he'll take the fill over there and dispose of it, because they said he has places to do that. And they will welcome the fill. So it's just going about 2 miles down the road, it sounds like.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, thank you.
So I'm looking at the, and let me share my screen. Oh, can you allow me to share, please? Just going back to the buffer strip that the board was talking about. I don't know. No, you don't want to share. You want to allow. Click on your 3 dots, I think.
Yeah. Just shows the whole thing.
That's a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay. So I'm not gonna be able to share my screen. The aerial photo though shows of the lots in question. There are a fair number of trees near where the new shore will be. It also looks like pretty much everything is mowed down to the water on 14 through 21.
Yeah,
Is
that's a
that-
fair statement. The trees
All right, so-
ironically do follow that plat line map pretty close.
All right, so let's move beyond the trees though. There's
Essentially,
3
it
levels
follows-
to a buffer strip.
okay,
So what I'm getting at is if they put this requirement in, the first 35 feet from the new shoreline is no longer going to be grass. It's going to be shrubs, wildflowers, native vegetation. If they put that as a condition for a portion of or the whole thing.
and that essentially is what lot 20 is now. That is, there's no grass there right now. You can't tell that from a satellite picture because of all the treetops. That's essentially the same for lot 16 that, it in essence only gets maybe mowed twice a summer, 3 times a summer. It's just pretty much natural state. Yeah, lots 14 and 15 do mow down. They keep a couple feet in front of the rocks. And if that's what it takes to get this passed, even with, their 35% ratio or whatever you're using there, it still probably gives them the exact same viewing area as they have as an entire frontage right now. So they're not here to speak for themselves, but I don't see where that is a problem. And then lot 13, I don't know how to address that because it's just a vacant lot. So, and we're not removing anything or touching any shore work on lot 21. So we're basically just here as representatives for lot 20.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said too many. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak in favor of the application? Any other members of the public wishing to speak in favor of the application? Any members of the public wishing to speak against the application? Any members of the public wishing to speak against the application?
So I'm not against or in favor as of yet, because I, as along with the caller, can't find the associated documents.
They are on the county website and they have been for a week.
So the www.co.adams.wis.us. Okay, I'm
Yep.
on there now and I still can't find them.
Do you see the calendar?
They're
I
listed in
do.
2022, even though this meeting is in 2023.
Ah, that could help. Thank you.
If you
Yeah,
go
so
through the calendar, then. Do you see the calendar on the first page of the website?
On the homepage.
Yep.
Where? No, I don't.
You're at co.adams.wi.us.
I am.
Can anybody see that?
No, because I can't share my screen.
So there's an across the top header that doesn't have calendar unless it's buried under something. And then there's a list down the left that doesn't have calendar unless it's buried in something.
If you know which one this is here.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen and show you what we're seeing. Oops. Can you see my screen?
It's just black.
Now you can.
Oh, now we can, yes.
Hello? So there's the calendar I'm referring to.
Yeah, so it doesn't pop up with a calendar on mine.
I don't know if you don't have a plugin or something, but that's where all the materials are, is under the agenda.
Okay, well, I, like the previous caller, will keep working on that. My family has owned before the lake actually had water in it. And so I'm nearby to this proposal. So I do have a sense of what it looked like in 1967. So again, I can't say I'm entirely in favor until I review the submitted documents. And then wondering if, I know it was a DNR first, zoning second, zoning first, DNR second question. Is there then a hearing with the DNR at some point that's public?
Not that I'm aware of, but that would be that's up to the DNR. We have no involvement in that.
And then does Jacob know the answer to that?
I will we'll word this carefully. I played the tag game here, and I've talked to about 8 different people from the DNR, and with talking to Dustin Grant in between all of those, also with Tri-Lakes. This has been, ongoing for 3 years now. This isn't something that's just been a couple of weeks. And everything has come back to, we're not, the shore work falls under the DNR guidelines, but we're not asking to add to the lake. We're asking to remove dry land. So the exact statement I got from, I believe it was Alexandria Kind from the DNR, but it may have been someone else, was you're not touching water, you're touching dry land. So this is completely up to Adams County. But whatever you do with your shore would have to follow, compliance for just normal shore work that, has been done multiple times on our lake in the past year by different addresses. So, and even according to my attorney, this, whatever you guys approve or deny, the DNR has to follow, because that's the point of a special exemption, because it falls under planning and zoning. So I'm just repeating what I was told. If someone knows more than I do, feel free to correct me.
Okay, and that makes sense. And then if you do go on with sort of phase 2, which would be if you need to dredge out towards the lake to get your access, that then falls under DNR, because we are then doing lake.
That looks like it's a pretty standard, I forget the name of the permit, but it's pretty standard dredging permit for the purposes of maintaining navigation from the line of navigation to the shore. So once kind of like the other board member asked about, wondering if we were that cove, like the other cove has the issues where the creek comes through across Apache, and that is slowly filled in with silt over the years. That does become that's a thing addressed in one of the statutes where, yes, you can apply for this permit to do that. And if we have to get a separate permit for that, that's what we will. But yeah, we would like to get, do this right and get a grade from, 6 or 7 feet of depth, gradually to the shoreline. There wouldn't make much sense in pushing the shore back and keeping that all at wading, at knee deep or ankle deep water. So yeah, but if that is it sounds like the dry land falls on Adams County to say yes or no. And then if we have to get a different permit to maybe contour that basin a little bit, that's what we'll do. So.
Yeah, and that's a good explanation. If that contouring needs to be done, then obviously potentially more lots will be involved. And then how is that financially?
No,
Responsibility?
Hold on. Are you talking about within the water?
Yeah, the dredging, if
That
phase
has nothing to do with. Yep, so that has nothing to do with this application.
I understand.
So really, that's a different, a topic for a different matter, and with the DNR, this board has no bearing on that at all.
But it wouldn't involve any other lots. No, it's still well within the riparian zones of the lots involved, but yeah, if we
We
get shut
shouldn't be
down,
discussing this portion of the topic.
okay.
Are there any other relevant input on this application?
Dustin,
Yes.
could I ask a question, please?
Mhm.
Bill Wimmer, I'm just sitting in on this meeting. You had discussed a three-tier approach. Did you go through the full three-tier? You said first 35 feet native vegetation and such.
Yeah,
So is all three tiers within that?
the three tiers are the ground cover, shrubs, and trees.
Okay,
That's your three. I mean, if I said three tiers, 3 layers
okay,
within that buffer strip.
thank you.
Are there any other questions or any other input from the anybody else in the public would like to speak? Let's go that route. Anybody else? We can close the public hearing and back to the chairman.
Yeah. Before I make a motion, I'd like to find out the buffer zone. You know, what are we gonna do? Count trees, you know, or how do we make a condition that represents what we expect in the way of a revegetated buffer zone?
So if the board requires a compliant buffer zone,
Yep.
there's already standards in place for what that has to look like.
That's true.
It's nothing you guys have to like 8 trees and
Yeah.
no, all you have to say is compliant buffer zone. And that means something very specific. And my recommendation is right now, there's not, to be honest, not much of a buffer zone out there. So if the board did something like, maybe not requiring a full buffer on it, but 30% of the new shoreline has to be restored to a compliant buffer zone. If they want to split it up or put it on one property, split it up. I think you're still moving forward from where it currently stands. And I just threw 30 out there, whatever number you guys come up with, but
Isn't this primarily up to land and water? Once we make the motion and enact this with the stipulation that it's up to land and water to describe what they want for a buffer zone.
yep.
It's not for us to pick. So I.
Right, yeah, you don't have to get specific and say you have to plant so many trees or anything like that.
I think you're covered. If
Yeah.
you ask for compliant.
Yeah.
That's the word I got written down.
Yep. And generally the way it works, the applicant would meet with land and water and say, okay, well, we need to do this.
That's their job.
Right. And they kind of work back and forth and say, well, do you like yellow flowers? And then they also look, is it sunny, like a sunny site? Is it dry? Is it a little on the wetter side? Is it shaded? Because the last thing we want them to do is
It also depends on runoff.
a lot of stuff. Because the last thing we would ever want them to do is put in a buffer strip and everything dies and, now we're back to nothing. So they work together and then come to an agreement and make it happen.
One other thing, Bob, you can't get any stricter than the DNR when it comes to issues like this. If their stipulation is they will comply with all DNR regulations and.
Well, by default, they have to comply with any DNR
There's no
regulations.
question. Right.
As of right now, the board could approve the application without any buffer strip requirements. That's not a requirement that they do it. This board does have the option to put that as a condition,
Well, I think.
which is what you asked before.
I think to satisfy all of this, I think that stipulation be added compliant.
Yep.
or compliant.
And then we'll make sure it's a,
That goes also for stormwater.
right,
That's all included in that.
Yep.
So if you motion includes compliant with all land and water.
No. say compliant buffer strip
Okay,
and a stormwater management plan.
that's it.
I mean, those are the two things we've talked about, but,
Yeah.
but I would also say, you know, I guess the board would have to decide a full restoration or like a percentage, like I said, or a number of feet or something like that across all the properties total.
And, they have a corridor. Cannot have a beach.
The beaches actually would technically be part of this application because currently they do not have a beach in the location where they want the new beach.
Am I still allowed to talk?
Give me a second. So currently, whether the plat shows that it's for a beach or not, I still have to look at what the use is right now. And the part where they're talking about putting the new beach is yard. But the board could say, well, okay, you're gonna restore 60% of your buffer strip, but you can have a 10-foot wide beach or whatever. Those are all matters that this board needs to decide. Or can put conditions on, or just say, what you have now is what you can have 30 feet further back.
Well, I need clarification of beach and corridor.
Okay? So corridor is,
Corridor be part of the beach or vice versa.
the corridor is a space within the buffer strip. So if you picture the buffer strip being the whole width of the lot, you get a path through the middle. Now, under the ordinance, you can remove the trees, you can remove the shrubs, you still have to have ground cover. Can be grass within that, I don't care as long as there's vegetation. A beach has no vegetation, that's why it's not legal. If this board said, well, you have a beach there, you're moving it back 30 feet after you do your digging, that would be up to this board. You could also say the beach has to be within the viewing corridor.
Which I think would make sense, if you give them 30% of that total shoreline.
Well, starting with that.
Hold on, go ahead, no, go ahead, Bob, sorry, I was cutting the other Bob off.
Which Bob?
All right, Benkowski, you talk, I was cutting Caldwell off.
Oh, I was just saying that 30% of the shoreline, that's pretty much the standard. And how they divide that up, that's entirely up to the property owners. As long as they have that 30% corridor in that shoreline, it should be okay. And I don't know about the beach, about that, but what you mentioned about that water runoff plan and working with the zoning planning for land and water, get it done, let them people handle that stuff.
Did everybody hear what he said? So he said, he was kind of throwing the number 30%, require them to do 30% restoration. How they divide it up is up to them. And they do have the one lot that is, from what I can see, is mostly compliant already. As far as the beach goes, potentially with the stormwater runoff plan and everything, it would minimize the erosion impacts into the lake. But that's what he said.
Does Robert want to make a motion?
I do think the applicant did have another question possibly. Public hearing's closed. It would be up to you whether you wanted me to ask him what his question was.
No. I'm at a loss here.
The applicant wanted to speak again, but it's up to you guys whether he can. Go ahead, Jake.
Okay, thank you for your time. I just wanted to clarify, since the beach does seem to be like a big hole, it's not currently, I mean, it had, there's documentation from 98 forward, and even from the drawing, and even the way the rip wall was made at a 90-degree angle that was filled with sand, and Christine maybe can comment more on this when they bought in 2004, but it was like a 4 foot by 30 foot beach area. It has since just washed out. That's why the water is so shallow there. And we're not really technically asking to put a beach in, we just don't want, like, for instance, one of the easement users is lot 18. She has 5 kids. We just don't want to put a rock rip wall there that they're going to trip and stumble over. It's not that we plan on putting a 20-foot deep beach in. We just want to maintain a shore that doesn't hurt people entering and exiting the water.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Oh, hold on. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Everything just shut off. So go back to the neighbor has 5 kids. We missed everything after
So
that.
it's, yeah, it was more of a beach 10 years ago from pictures and stuff of what we've seen there. In an actual beach, it, like I said, the retaining wall that's in place, there actually was a wood retaining wall, like between, kind of as it's drawn on map 3, and that was sand. The sand has washed out due to waves, but it was never really like a beach. I'm not sure what everyone's picturing when we say beach. Like, we're not, like, I can picture some of the beaches on Camelot or even that, on Sherwood. That's not what we're asking for. We just don't plan on necessarily putting rock rip wall down that where a dog or a kid wouldn't be able to get in and out of the water without spraining an ankle or something. We don't plan on making a 30-foot sand beach. It'll be 95% natural vegetation down to the water. There'll be areas where we don't want that rock rip wall so that they can get used as ingress and egress to the water safely for people without stepping over a 5-foot deep rip wall. Is to clarify, we're not asking to put a beach. We just want to maintain a sandy shoreline, essentially. So.
Okay.
You have to excuse me, maybe this sounds stupid, but I don't know why we're arguing the semantics of the DNR's department, land and water. All we need to do is have a motion that they're compliant. That's it. It's not up to us to police what they're doing. That's other departments.
Well, and that's not what they're requesting. You guys can say yes or no. Can they have a beach?
It doesn't,
That's your call.
okay. We don't enforce the wetland or the water runoff or anything else.
No.
Our job is to decide which zoning is correct for which situation. And is it compatible to the neighbors? And does it require something to satisfy a handicap situation? Once we make the motion and make this thing compliant with all regulations of land and water and the DNR, that's our job. We've done what we're supposed to do. We don't tell him he can have a 10-foot beach.
Yeah.
That's up to the DNR.
No, that's up to you.
How can it be up to us when we don't have the authority?
Because so it's not the DNR that's regulating it. It's planning and zoning.
It's land and water.
No, it's planning and zoning. It's my office.
So you're saying to me what, we can minimize or maximize the viewing corridor. We can make it a 50-foot viewing corridor if we feel like it. And it would be law.
Yes.
Okay.
For this project, that doesn't apply like any place else in the world. But because right now, I'm going to do some drawing on the board. You guys can see that whiteboard? Maybe? Okay. So the current shoreline,
You're right in the way, so you
Okay.
might want to back off there.
Okay.
Get out of the way. There you go. There you go.
all right, that's the current shoreline.
Increase the tax revenues, we can buy markers.
Currently, that would be the buffer strip. There's not a lot of vegetation there.
Yes.
There's some trees. They're going to expand this out here, which means this is now all going to be water. The question becomes, what do they have to do out here? Most of it's grass. There are some trees. I think on the one lot, there was some shrubs also. We don't have anything in the ordinance saying that if you say yes to digging this out, that they have to do anything out here. So if this board says, well, you know, we're letting you do this, and in exchange for that, you need to restore some of this. You can pick whichever number. You can say they have to restore 4 feet of it. Or 100 feet of it. That's completely on this board's decision. Anything beyond here, the DNR doesn't regulate. That's all planning and zoning. If you say yes, you have to restore it. My other division, land and water, makes sure that they do it right. That it's a good buffer strip. But it's still ultimately planning and zoning that regulates it. If that clarifies, sold out. So yes, you guys have to, you have the authority to say yes or no. You can dig out the shoreline. And you can put conditions on it saying, if you do it, here's what you have to do in exchange.
What doesn't the compliant cover it? And the stormwater management
Stormwater management, all that's gonna do,
is put the buffer in.
no,
No?
stormwater management is, here's the road. They're gonna have their track with their skid steer going down there to do the digging. This is all gonna end up being bare dirt.
Okay.
They gotta do something to make sure that doesn't end up in the lake.
Okay.
That's stormwater management.
Okay. I had a
Um,
misconception, I thought.
yep, so if you say compliant buffer strip.
Yeah.
Now that is regulating the
Yeah.
the vegetation around the new shoreline. And I'm still confused on the beach part. Because currently, there's a beach right there that has,
I had the drawing, but I can't find it.
right, which is mainly sand currently. Is that correct, Jake?
Yeah,
Correct.
and it was very, and if Christine wants to verify this, she's been there for 10 years, 12 years longer than us, but it was sand. It wasn't a huge, it just was essentially able to walk in, drag a kayak in and out because it was no different than a beach club anywhere else on Lake Sherwood, although it is an easement instead. So the beach is kind of a stretch of the term, but it's also not rip wall or rip wrap or anything like that. It's just a
There is no vegetation there, correct?
grass.
Grass in
It's
the
currently grass to the edge because the sand is washed out, but under that is actual sediment paper, that black stuff. Like if you take a shovel, that's what's there because the sand is washed out. But it was 10 years ago, all, sand for about 4 feet by 30 feet. And it's,
Okay.
and you can still see the remains of the wooden rip wall, like stacked up on that 90-degree angle.
Okay.
Where it gets hairy is that,
On the new part. Are you putting, is there going to be vegetation, if we say that 4 foot by 30 foot? Whether we call it a beach or whatever, is there going to be vegetation on that?
we will
Where you're
follow
not
whatever. I mean, yeah, like I said, our main goal, at least as far as we're concerned on lot 20, and I think Christine's the same on 16, is we do not want a 100% continuous rip wall. We would like to maintain, safe access in and out of the water for, by
Okay,
foot.
so where you're not putting the riprap, what will be on the shoreline? right where the ground touches the water.
The screen froze for a second, so I missed part of your question. I apologize.
So if you rip wrap the whole shoreline and you leave this 40-foot path open, whatever the number ends up being, in that 40-foot path where there is no rip wrap, what will be on the ground right where the water touches the land? Is there going to be vegetation of some sort, or is it just going to be sand?
Probably I will do whatever we have to do. It's currently black dirt up to, and then there's the black netting, which was placed down and then had sand put over the top to kind of separate the sand from the black dirt. But it's currently grass to the water's edge, and then it drops down about 9 inches and you step into the water. So if there's a way to do that where we put a vegetation buffer or a sand buffer or some sort of, cloth retaining wall, we're fine with that. If we're allowed just a 2-foot strip of sand that graduates into the water, we're fine with that. The main thing is, like I said, because that's an easement for use, it gets into a gray litigation area with making sure that it stays access for ingress and egress for those other lots. And I don't know how else to really explain that, but
I guess based on what he's saying, I would recommend to the board to require vegetation. They're looking for access to the water instead of calling it a beach. So they may not rip wrap their whole shoreline, but the board would still need to decide what percentage of their shoreline should they restore as a compliant buffer strip.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you were to pass this just like it is, would Land and Water be involved?
No.
Okay, so Land and Water only becomes involved when you have stipulations.
Yep.
Okay. Do you think it would be advisable to have them look at this and come up with recommendations?
That's what the conditions would be. The Land and Water doesn't have any ordinances that they can look at and regulate, or to make a, I dealt with this prior to me being in charge of the division. They don't really have an ordinance to go off of and say, well, okay, you need to do this to comply with this. If the board says yes, and the other conditions, those are things that they can look at and say, okay, well, this is how you have to do a compliant buffer strip. We use them on a regular basis for that. Same with the stormwater management plan. As far as whether you can do the whole project or not, as the department head, I wouldn't feel comfortable that staff giving that recommendation, because they wouldn't have anything to base it on. But the conditions, they can certainly do. If there's an enforcement issue, it ultimately comes back to the zoning division to enforce.
Would it be legal if this board said no more than 30% of each lot can be viewing corridor or beach?
Oh, I wouldn't go that route.
Pardon?
I think I'd go the other route. Instead of calling it the viewing corridor,
Call it beach.
well,
Water access,
beaches aren't,
dedicated areas that are sand.
right. And they're really, based on what he said, that's not really what they're asking for. So I'd stay away from the term beach. At this point, all I would say is,
Water access.
no, go the other route. How many feet of full buffer strip do you want? They're going to have about 250 feet of frontage. Of that 250, how much of it do you want to be completely vegetated on the 3 levels?
Give them 30% access and vegetate the rest of it.
We would have to go, well, we would have to go at least 35, but so
35.
he's saying 65% of the whole shoreline has to be vegetated for the first 35 feet.
Yes.
That's what Benkowski is recommending. 65% vegetated, full compliant buffer strip. Outside of that, it can be down to, that's your viewing corridor you were talking about. It can be grass, so they can still access the lake. And the riprap, I don't really take into consideration in the buffer because that's something the DNR allows, and that's like right at that interface. So Benkowski is recommending 65% of the shoreline needs to be restored.
Does Bob want to make a motion? That would make sense at this time.
Well, I would move to that, okay? 55% shoreline restoration, and then the thing with the zoning planning, overseeing this thing, and then that,
I can't
water
hear
runoff.
this.
Those three things is, and then I'm fine with that.
So the motion Benkowski made is to require 65% of the new shoreline to be a compliant buffer strip, stormwater management plan. And he also said that the zoning department would make sure of compliance, but that's a given anyway, so that's the motion.
You heard the motion?
No. Well, we have to put it in there, like, it can't be any, the distance between the normal high water mark can't be greater, it has to be more than 75 feet, because we're really getting close to that.
Of the structures that are left,
The structures that are there.
let's do because his motion is just to attach those conditions. It's not to vote on the application. What I would suggest is finishing his, and then you making a motion for that also, to attach that condition. So right now, we're looking for a second on Benkowski's motion.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. Is he talking?
No,
Having made the motion and been seconded, is there any other questions?
No,
All,
no.
all those in favor, reply by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passed.
okay. So that condition has been attached to that motion's conditions have been attached to the application. Mr. Caldwell, you had, now bring up yours.
I make a motion that there will be no beach outside of the viewing corridor.
No beaches are going to be allowed as of right now, anyplace. But you were talking about the 75 foot.
Yes,
Do you want to make that?
yeah, it must be 75 feet or greater from the
From the high water
proposed high water mark.
Oh, you must kind of go.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Cut out.
Yeah.
So your motion did pass. The new motion is, or the next motion is to not allow any excavation. No. I'm trying to think how to best word your motion. They cannot create any non-conforming structures. And what that's getting at is you can't dig far enough that now all of a sudden the house is less than 75 feet to the water.
Okay, I can live with that.
So they cannot create a conforming structure. That's Mr. Caldwell's motion.
Second the motion, whoop, I can't do that.
Good try. Mr. Benkowski, we are looking for a second on it.
I'll second Caldwell's motion.
Okay.
For the motion and second. Any other questions? Okay, but if you reply by saying aye. Aye.
Benkowski, vote.
Yes, on Caldwell, yes.
Okay, yep. All right, so you now have all those conditions have been attached to the application. You either can put more conditions on if you choose, or a motion and a second to approve the application with the attached conditions.
Robert?
I will make that motion.
Benkowski, you made that motion?
Oh, Lankowski?
Yep. Still need a second though?
It's to approve the application with all the stipulations attached.
Second the motion.
All right.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please reply by saying aye. Aye.
All right. So that's where we stand. That's done.
Boy, it took a long time to get from A to B.
Oh, we got there though. Made sure it was right. We have no correspondence. And the next meeting date is March 1st. Do we have any? Does anybody know what the first Wednesday of next month is? Yeah, it's March 1st. Do we have any applicants?
I should be back in town.
All right.
Good.
We'll look forward to seeing you. Same time, March 1st.
All right. Everybody have that? We need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, I can do
I
that.
think they figured that out.
Thank you. No questions, I hope.
Second
Yep.
Motion's been made.
Hold on.
We need a second to adjourn.
Second.
Motion. He did.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Bob.
No, thank
All right.
you.
See you.
Bye, Bob. Thank you.
Thanks.